Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us from different time zones, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. My name is Marilyn. I'm the market producer for Ascensus Institute, which is formerly known as the ARIA Business. And we are committed to providing quality services and courses by experienced and resolute educators. We believe in nurturing every student and creating opportunities for career development to enable the realization of not only their learning journey or goals, but also of their career and business goals moving forward. So, through these interviews and other events like webinars and face to face networking sessions, we hope to add value, especially to professionals who would like to upskill for career development, either towards promotions or career transition, for entrepreneurs and small and medium enterprise owners who would like to upskill to ensure business growth, and for those foreign nationals who are working here in Singapore or who would like to work in Singapore to be able and to have an internationally recognized education. So, today's theme is on embracing change, uh, fearlessly, fearlessly, insights and strategies. And of course, as usual, it's my great pleasure to introduce and to have this conversation with our group CEO, Palani, who has 36 years of experience in developing organizations, its leaders, and staff through strategy formulation, culture building, and change management to build future ready performing teams that can succeed in the digital era. And so, without so much further ado, hello, Palani.
Hi, Marilyn. Thank you so much. Good to meet Experts Insights again. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's taken the time to join us. We are going to share some ideas and some experiences we've had. Please feel free to chip in and join in the conversation in the chat. And
Yes.
so I want to talk about change. It's very, very inevitable. That's the key thing about change. There is nothing that you can prepare for because there's only so much that you can anticipate. There's always something that's not going to happen. And that's why change is inevitable because it happens every day and all the time. Assuming you decide that if I don't do anything and no change will happen to me, and you sit and not do anything, let me tell you, time would have changed. So there is nothing that doesn't change. So this is why it is very, very important to know the first thing about change, that it is inevitable. You can't stop it. It's better to look at it in a way that's more positive and empowering. So one way to look at it is to say, hey, change brings new possibilities, new perspectives, new ways of doing things. Maybe I have not done this before, and by doing this, I can look at it in a different way. So when we do this and we look at change as bringing new possibilities, we don't actually fear change, right? Now, change
Mhm.
is only feared when we don't like it. So my first point was it's inevitable. So whether you like or not, life is going to throw changes at you. Number one. Number two, if you look at it as possibilities, things that can provide new perspective, then it leads you to my third point, which is then you can embrace it positively because it shows you something you don't know. Because if it's already something you know, then there's no change. So the moment you learn something new is a change. The moment you try to do something, it doesn't work, and you have to change how you address it, that's a change. And therefore, if it's inevitable, if it gives you new possibilities, then this mindset allows you to embrace it with optimism and excitement. So that's how I would define change affecting us.
Thank you so much for defining change for us. At least we are in the same page, and everyone will have like where which from which perspective are we coming from, right, when we
Mm,
say about change. And it's interesting you've mentioned that change is inevitable, which is like all of us knows already, but at the same
yeah.
time a lot of us really like don't like change, right?
Mm,
Despite
mm.
that, as you mentioned as well, it's something that we face on a regular basis, right? On a daily basis, in fact, right?
Yeah,
Whether
yeah.
it's in life or in professional. uh,
Mm, true.
yeah. And so that leads me to the question that, like, so having said that, what are the common problems and pains when it comes to
Okay.
embracing change?
Okay. So I will relate it to my own experience.
Mhm,
The foremost challenge with change is holding
mhm,
on to the past. We are all familiar with the past, and human beings by nature, most of us do not like anything that's unfamiliar. So we hold
mhm,
on to our past. So in my example, I was in the early part of my career where the technology wasn't available. It was always face to face and it was physical interaction, and I was very comfortable with it. And then COVID came, and all of a sudden everything became virtual.
mhm,
Now I am not so comfortable sitting down like this and making a presentation. So I had shunned virtual classes for a long time. I used to tell my clients, let's do physical classes rather than virtual classes. But this is the way the world is moving. So
mhm,
what do I do? I have to get used to it. I have to take my own medicine and see that this is a new possibility because I have embraced this as a new possibility and not focusing on what I was comfortable with. This session, for example, this expert
mhm,
insights, allows me to connect with people I would never have been able to connect if I was still in the physical world. So the last time we had people from India, Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka joining us, and I'm not sure where we have people from in this session, but it allows me to connect with people whom I would never have connected. So holding on to the past is not always the best way to deal with change. The next is thinking that change is a roadblock rather than a stepping stone. Because we are all so comfortable, we don't like change. A routine is a comfortable way of life. We would be quite messed up in our mind if every day we had to figure out which station to take the train from and which station to get down or which bus to take, because if they kept changing the bus routes every day, we will not be able to have a normal life, because
mhm.
bus routes don't change for 20 years, 30 years. They're almost always same number on the same route. We are comfortable with taking the bus. And that's why if we look at change and say this is a stepping stone to a new skill set, to a new way of doing something, to a new way of dressing, to a new way of eating, and that would then allow us not to be so fearful. We're only fearful because we think we don't like what is not familiar. So the third step to overcome is do not fear the unknown, because it is only fearful because it is not known yet. The moment you try it out, you're done. It's okay. Like a child trying to walk, unless the child falls, or an older child trying to cycle, unless they fall, they will not know how to balance the cycle. So being afraid to fall will never give them the cycling skills. So therefore, ride the wave of the change rather than try to stay on shore to avoid the waves. These are the three things that I think will be the most common problems in trying to change fearlessly.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Palani. And this comes out just now. I fully agree with you that change is inevitable, which is what you've said as you define change, right? But sometimes, if we prepare, how's it will reflect to us?
Okay, so that question comes from Audrey from Myanmar. Thanks for the question, Audrey. Long time no see. I want to highlight how, even if we prepare, it will reflect to us. Let me tell you, we think we are prepared, but we actually do not come out of our comfort zone enough. So, for
Mhm,
example, I seldom use hot water for my shower. So when I
mhm,
get to a cold country, it's a must because the weather is so cold. So I turn on the hot water, but I turn it on too hot. Then it justifies why I don't like to bathe with hot water, because I like room temperature water in Singapore.
Mhm.
So when we don't come out of our comfort zone and play around with the temperature of the water, you can't make use of that particular temperature to fit that environment. And because we haven't tried, not we, but I have not tried it often
Mhm.
enough, I am not
Mhm.
comfortable with it. So we keep telling ourselves, I come out of my comfort zone. Well, maybe that's something we need to look at and say, are we really out of our comfort zone? That's number one. Number two, we should look at all our previous changes that we were hesitant to try and what happened when we tried. Did it work? Number
Mhm.
one, or did it not work? In both cases, we are richer for the experience. If it worked, now I know something new. If it didn't work, then I know something that I didn't do well was not was not good for me. So, in
Mhm.
preparing for the change, we need to look at the lessons from the past. We don't need to hold on to the past, but we need to hold on to the lessons from the past. So, for example, we have gone through our life cycle at different stages. We have learned different things, and if we are somebody who's 25, to ask him whether he would know all that he knew at 25 at the age of 10, the answer would be no. But he had progressively built it up. And that's how change is. It's like changing our clothes. We constantly got to change our clothes as we grow in size, height wise or size sideways. But if we don't change, you will be uncomfortable. That's what self discovery is all about in change. And the last good thing about change is this: research has shown we keep young by changing. This is the evolutionary process. Research shows that if we do new exercises, if we take new routes to walk, if we eat new dishes, if we do things differently, like writing with our left hand when our right hand is our dominant hand, if we paint when we don't paint, it creates new lines called synapses and neurological connections in our brain, and that's what keeps us young. So try new things when you don't have to change. That's when you come out of your comfort zone. So in my case, I tried to write with my left hand the English alphabet, and tell you it's really frustrating because it's not
Mhm.
straight. It's like going back to school as a 3 year old, 4 year old kid trying to learn. But it then forces me to learn something new. So that's what you should try. When you are not consciously changing anything, try to
Mhm.
change. And then you will get used to changing more often. I hope that sort of answers the question, because that's what I was hoping to share with you all.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. And I really love the fact or what you've said around like it's not really like clinging on the past, but the lessons that you've learned.
Mm,
Because it doesn't
yeah.
make sense like to cling on the past, but it's really more of like what did you learn? And that's the reason
Mm,
why they say, right, it's either you succeed or you learn from it,
yeah.
right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
I really
That's a good
appreciate that
saying.
reminder.
Yeah.
So and I said like my pleasure to meet you here, Palani. And Bless is saying hello. Thank you for joining us today. And I is
Hello.
saying like thank you so much for answering her questions. So thank you so much. So for those who are watching us live, feel free to join us in this conversation. Um, and that leads me to my next question. So, why is it important for us to embrace change? I mean, you've mentioned earlier, like we grow up, like whether it's sideways or up. But then, if we stay, like wear the old clothes that we have, right? How to fit in, it will be uncomfortable. So,
Yeah.
do you have other things that you'd like to share with us? Why embracing change is very important for us?
True. True. Oh, I see my friend sign in. I just learned how to, like I told you, one of my challenges was virtual learning. So now I'm figuring out that in LinkedIn, people can connect with me. That's very
Exactly.
nice. I've learned a new skill today.
Yeah, and there are several comments before you answer my question. By the way, I'm
Mm.
seeing quite a number of comments here. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining us in this conversation. Manjit was asking, do you change for the better or change for the sake of change or change for the better? Yeah, that's a good
Okay,
question. Would you like to
that's a
address that first?
that's a good question, and Manjit always asks interesting questions. So let me share my take on this. We change, okay? We change.
Mhm,
Whether it's good or it's not good, it's relative to the outcome you wanted when you want to change. Are you okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So Manjit, so saying that, I want to make sure that change, the outcome is always in relation to the objective of the change.
Mhm,
So if my change was I was going to learn how to run for a marathon, and I get up every morning and I run, but I don't put my heart and soul into it, then my change is there, but it's not meeting my objective of running the marathon. All right.
mhm,
So let's be very clear. Change is for a particular purpose.
mhm.
Better or worse depends on the outcome.
That you want, right? Thank you for sharing that with us, and I appreciate your answer. Hope Manjit is satisfied with that answer. And so we have another question: what
Hmm.
role does self awareness play in one's ability to adapt to change fearlessly?
That's a very good question. So often, resistance to change is probably insufficient self awareness in our history of changes in the past.
Mhm,
We resist change so much that we think we can't change, but we look at our whole life, we've changed so much. Some
mhm,
forced on us, some we embraced, and some we don't even recognize. For example, learning languages. Where did we learn these languages from? If we learn as an adult, it's through self awareness. As a
mhm,
kid, it's by absorbing the environment. So, self awareness in change really is an issue only with adults. Children don't have this problem. If they
mhm.
can't get what they want, they will figure out how to change and get what they want. It's the adults that are stuck by our paradigms. So, self awareness is extremely, extremely important in change. And thank you, Joey, for that question.
Yeah, true. We're receiving a lot of additional questions, which are very, very good, I would say. So
Mm.
thank you so much for that. And hello, P. I'm not sure who you
No,
are,
no,
but
that's my friend. That's my
hi.
friend. So I know this is the initial. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
greedy.
it's Gridia says, when entering new opportunity, I tend to seek to build plan A and B in case it's not working. But then I am exposed to the negatives and hesitations. How can we be prepared and yet still stay positive on riding the new challenge? And that this I believe is the question that I have for you in the
Hmm.
last
Okay.
in the last question, right?
Okay. So, greedy. What you are asking for in a professional setting is required. Every time we plan a project, we need to do risk assessment. Now, knowing what's the possibility of the risk, I won't go into the risk table, probability of occurrence and likelihood of impact. Yeah, but that's the philosophy of risk. If you know the risk, you're better off than being hit by the risk without knowing it. So you don't need to be negative, but the awareness allows you. For example, if you're in a 100-meter race, what is the worst thing that can happen in the 100-meter race? You are last. Okay. So you know you're going to be last. There cannot be anything lower unless you get disqualified, like what happened in the Asian Games with the false start. Okay, so we won't go there. So if you know that's the worst case, then you know, okay, I cannot get worse than position number 8 because there are only eight runners. You don't have to worry about being the 8th runner. That's not the purpose of risk assessment and mitigation. It's being aware, and related to Joey's earlier question, this is basically self awareness. So, in your case, it's project awareness. You know, these are possibilities. Don't focus on the negative. Always focus on the positive, because the half glass empty is the same as a half glass full. So what do you want to focus on? That's what you can stay focused on. Don't hope for the worst. Plan for the worst and work on getting the best outcome.
Thank you. And just say hi from Florica.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you made a comment to acknowledge Bless
yes.
here. And then Manjit says thank you for the answer. And would you say that it is not an efficient use of one's time to try to change something that one has no control over?
That's a good question. This is the question for philosophy. All right. So now I won't go into the full philosophy, but I will share with you my thought. Self awareness, taking Joey's question, two questions earlier, allows you to know what you can change and cannot change. So when you know what you cannot change, let's build it into the process. For
Mhm.
example, right? There was a question asked by a youngster once a long time ago. So basically, the youngster said, "Uncle, there are so many hours in a day. Why must we start at 8:30 in the morning?" He just entered the workforce. And you know, youngsters' life, they are gaming up to 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and then to go to work at 8:30 is a challenge. So my answer to him was, yeah, okay, there are many days, many hours in a work to start, but the job you took starts at 8:30. Therefore, there are no number of hours to discuss. There's only one time, and that's 8:30. It's a given. You can't change it. Of course, you can change the job, but that job will also have its own number. You cannot keep quibbling about the number once you have decided this is where you will work. And that's what it is. If you know you cannot change it, build it into the system. If there is a limit, there's a public holiday on the day you want to go live, then either you go before or you go after. That's all there is to it, because the calendar won't change for you.
Yeah, that's a very intelligent answer to this question. So thank you for that. And Frida says hi, Palani and Maryland. Thanks for this session, and Joey thanks you as well for answering his question. And my last question is actually how to embrace change with an optimism and excellent. You might have answered most of it, but if there's
Yeah.
anything additional before we end
Okay.
this
Would you say
conversation.
which is the question? What Chasing's question? Would you say is not an efficient use of time? I thought we answered that.
Yeah, we already answered that
Yeah.
question.
What is the
It
question now?
I'm just asking if you'd like to add anything more
Ah,
on how to embrace
okay.
change with optimism, which is our last question, with
Okay.
optimism and excitement.
Okay. Fine. I will add this. I always take lessons from nature for how we can evolve.
Mhm,
Nothing has survived in nature by not changing over time.
mhm,
And that is the classic support for the need to embrace change.
mhm.
You've heard of that classic phrase, right? The way of the dodo. The dodo didn't evolve, so is extinct. Only animals that don't change become extinct. So change has a strong proponent for it. So please continue to change. That's important.
Yes, and I really love you've mentioned earlier, like how can you actually still or stay young if you are actually open to change. So
Yeah.
that's a great reminder for those who wants to stay young. So and change is inevitable but painful, according to Frida. And so
Well,
again, like what you've said, like it's how you actually look at it,
yes.
and how can you actually turn it into possibilities rather than the challenges or the painful part of it, right?
Yes, correct. It's our attitude to change that really affects the change. Things can happen to us. It's
Mhm.
how we react that makes the big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the question raised earlier, right? About like how can you actually like take that
Prepare.
as an
Yeah.
opportunity or prepare
Yeah.
for it, right?
Correct.
So
Yes. Don't see it as a roadblock. See it as a stepping stone and embrace it.
mm,
That's the only way to deal with change. It will not stop coming. It's like the wave in the ocean.
True, true. So thank you so much. It's been another meaningful conversation with you, Palani. I know we've actually exceeded time, but
Yeah,
we have a lot of amazing questions that
yeah.
we should answer, right? So thank
Yes,
you
and
so much
I
for
like
that.
to thank everyone for joining us. So today we've had Philippines, India, Myanmar, Singapore. Thank you very much.
Very international. So thank you for your participation in this
Yeah,
conversation, which make it more meaningful.
yeah.
And is there any final message you'd like to leave our audience with
Yeah,
before we end this conversation?
please drop in the chat if there are other topics you would like us to cover. The whole point is an exchange. I will do about 10-15 minutes, and then this question and answers are the best way for us to share our experiences and learn together.
Thank you, and we look forward to having you on
Okay.
our webinar on October 10 and
Yeah.
our PG Connect on October 20 again with you, Palani. And so we will actually add in the comments later on those events, and we look forward to adding value with you. Thank you so much, Palani, and
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. And then follow our senses as we post more of these talks. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Bye for
Okay.
now.
Bye bye.